The first time Daniel Ashford followed his nanny, it wasn't because he was jealous, suspicious, or bored. It was because his 6-year-old son had cried himself to sleep again, whispering a name Daniel didn't understand. "Please don't let her go." Daniel stood frozen outside his son's bedroom that night, his hand still resting on the doorframe. He had everything a man could want: money, influence, respect, but in that moment, he felt like a stranger in his own house. And the strangest part? The person his son feared losing wasn't him. It was the nanny. Daniel Ashford was a self-made millionaire, the kind magazines loved to profile. He built a tech empire before 40, lived in a glass mansion overlooking the city, and commanded rooms with ease. But behind closed doors, his life was quieter, emptier. His wife, Eleanor, had passed away 3 years earlier after a sudden illness, leaving him alone to raise their son, Leo. Daniel tried. He really did. He scheduled his days down to the minute: board meetings, flights, charity events, all arranged so he could be home by dinner. But grief doesn't run on schedules, and neither does a child's heart. That's why he hired Clara. She arrived one rainy afternoon with a modest resume, gentle eyes, and a voice that didn't rush. Leo clung to her leg within hours. Daniel noticed but told himself it was temporary. Children adapted quickly. People came and went, except Clara didn't go. Weeks passed. Then months. The house changed. Laughter returned to hallways that once echoed. Leo started drawing again, pictures filled with color instead of scribbled storms. Daniel watched from a distance, grateful but uneasy. Something about Clara didn't fit neatly into his world. She never talked about her past, she declined invitations to stay late or attend events, and every evening, at exactly 6:30, she left the house. No matter what point. One evening, Daniel asked casually, "Do you have another job?" Clara smiled, polite but distant. "No. Just somewhere I need to be." That answer should have satisfied him. It didn't. The night Leo cried, everything shifted. The next afternoon, Daniel watched from his office window as Clara walked down the long driveway, her coat pulled tight, her steps purposeful. Without fully deciding to, he grabbed his keys. He followed at a distance. Clara didn't go to a cafe or meet friends. She took the bus to the older part of the city, where buildings leaned like tired men and streetlights flickered even before dusk. Daniel's expensive car stood out painfully as he parked 2 blocks away and continued on foot. She stopped in front of a small, worn building with peeling paint and a faded sign that read, "Community Care Center." Daniel frowned. He watched as Clara knocked, waited, then stepped inside like she belonged there. Curiosity turned to discomfort. Discomfort turned to something heavier. He waited. Through a dusty window, he saw movement. Children. Many of them. Some laughing. Some coughing. Clara moved among them easily, kneeling, hugging, listening. She tied shoelaces, wiped noses, helped with homework. She looked different, lighter. Then Daniel saw something that made his chest tighten. A little girl ran to Clara and wrapped her arms around her waist. Clara knelt and whispered something into the child's ear, brushing her hair back with a tenderness Daniel recognized instantly. It was the same way Eleanor used to touch Leo. Daniel stepped back, suddenly ashamed. He hadn't expected this. He didn't know what he had expected. When Clara finally emerged an hour later, Daniel was already gone. That night, Leo asked, "Did you know Miss Clara helps other kids too?" Daniel paused. What do you mean? She reads to them. And brings food sometimes. She says they're brave. Daniel swallowed. Did she say that? Leo nodded. She says being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being kind even when you are. Daniel didn't sleep that night. The next day, he confronted her, not angrily, but awkwardly, like a man stepping onto unfamiliar ground. I followed you, he admitted. Clara stiffened. Her eyes hardened, just for a second. Why? I didn't trust what I didn't understand, he said honestly. I'm sorry. Silence stretched between them. Finally, she spoke. I grew up there. That center kept me alive when my parents didn't come home from work one day. I promised myself I'd never forget. Daniel felt something crack open inside him. Why didn't you tell me? She shrugged gently. You didn't ask. And I didn't want pity. I just wanted to do my job well. You do more than that, he said quietly. From that day on, Daniel saw Clara differently. Not as an employee, not as a replacement for what he'd lost, but as someone who carried her own invisible weight and still chose kindness every day. But life doesn't change all at once. Weeks later, Leo fell seriously ill. A rare infection. Hospital rooms. Machines humming through the night. Daniel stayed by his side, terrified, bargaining with a universe that had already taken too much from him. Clara came every day. She read stories. She sang softly when Leo slept. She never overstepped, never demanded space. She was just there. One night, Leo whispered, Daddy, if something happens, can Clara stay? Daniel's heart broke cleanly in two. Nothing's going to happen, he said, though his voice shook. Leo recovered. Slowly. Miraculously, and something else healed too. Daniel began cutting meetings short, not out of obligation, but desire. He started listening instead of managing. He visited the community center, anonymously at first, then openly. He funded repairs, programs, scholarships, but the biggest change wasn't financial. It was personal. One evening, as Clara packed her bag to leave, Daniel said, You don't have to rush. She looked at him, surprised. For once, he added, smiling softly, I'd like to walk with you. They walked together, no destination, just shared silence. Two people shaped by loss, choosing presence over fear. Months later, Daniel asked Clara to stay, not as a nanny, not as charity, but as family. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, Yes. But only if we do it together. The house filled with warmth again. Not the kind money buys, but the kind that grows slowly, patiently, through trust. And Leo, he stopped crying at night. Years later, when Daniel was asked in an interview what truly changed his life, he didn't mention the company, the fortune, or the accolades. He said, following someone taught me where my heart had been missing. Because sometimes, the greatest discovery isn't a secret, it's a reminder of what really matters.